So good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to being here, being now, being aware on this Sunday, a special Sunday on many reasons, but certainly special because we're here sharing this occasion together, a retreat day, and also because it is Easter Sunday. I don't think I've ever had a retreat day on a Easter Sunday. Usually feeling that people have family commitments and Easter egg hunts and going to church and so forth. But it worked out well to have Ajahn Bhuripanyo here on Easter Sunday. And certainly what a wonderful way to spend not just the Sunday, but Easter Sunday with some meditation. Meditation, hearing some reflections, contemplations, and developing some calm, some clarity, some insight. So perfect occasion. And we're blessed with perfect weather. Those of you that are aware that last retreat day we were going to have, we had a cyclone instead, so it needed to be cancelled. So wonderful weather for us today. It's a blessing. As they say in Thailand, when they have special occasions in the monasteries, if it doesn't rain, it's a blessing. If it does rain, it's a blessing. So it's all good. And so over the course of this day, we'll usually we finish at 3, but today we'll finish at 2 p.m. just to allow a bit more time for yourselves to at home with family or whatever if you need to. But certainly put into our hours here some quality listening to some teachings, some meditation, sitting, walking, reflections, and so forth. And also some journaling, some writing into the lovely diaries which we've been given. A company contacted me saying that they wanted to give us the gift of some special diaries, probably a bit of a promotion for the company. And so that they were delivered and so that use them for writing, journaling, recording your meditation experience. And also thank you for the food that you brought. We'll have our meal around about 11. Buddhist monks and nuns need to finish their meal before 12, midday. So I'll offer the food to Ajahn around 11, and maybe we'll invite him to give a short blessing. And then he'll have his meal, then we'll partake of whatever's left over. So there'll be plenty. And finish that at 12, and then have another 2 hours for some meditation, reflections, and questions. Finish up at 2 p.m. So again, welcome Ajahn Bhuripanyo. Wonderful to have you here. Ajahn arrived on Thursday, so we had him here for the Thursday evening meditation group, and obviously for today as well. And just as a bit of a brief for those that weren't here on Thursday, the Ajahn is an Australian Buddhist monk, born in Queensland, and decided to take up monastic life, ordained in Thailand. Spent time at the same monastery that I was living at in Thailand, and then time in England with the branch monasteries there, and then on into back to Australia. Some time up at Dharmagiri Forest Monastery in Queensland near Ipswich. Some time at Local Dharma. Some time just down in Sydney. Some time at the monastery, Bodhinyana Monastery in Wellington, New Zealand, and maybe a few other places as well. But now the Ajahn is spending time at different places rather than being based mainly at one place for a number of years. So moving around a bit, giving some teachings, and sharing himself with people like ourselves. So whatever dana comes today, we'll monetary dana will offer to the Ajahn for his transport, different places that he needs to get to. So thank you for, again, all that you bring, and hopefully you have a wonderful, mindful, meditative day. Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everybody. I hope that I can speak loud enough The air conditioning's on, and it's I've had less. Yes, it's okay. You can hear at the back. Okay. I've had less experience than John's in leading retreats and giving talks in public. In fact, this is my first public retreat. The first time I've ever led a retreat outside of the monastery. I've done a little bit of a few guided meditations and a few talks inside the monastery, but this is quite new for me. So I hope that I can share something with you all today that you can take away and is valuable for you, and that we can all find some peace in our day, and that will kind of last, and that we can come back to. Each time we go deeper in our meditation, then we kind of remind ourselves that peace is waiting for us when we stop, and when we stop the activities, stop the worrying, stop the planning, then peace is always in the heart waiting. So we just need to find it and remind ourselves of that. Okay, so shall we go into a guided meditation?
Yep.
Yep.
With the clock there you use.
Okay, so find a comfortable position, everyone. Not too tense. We don't need to be upright, stiff, upright, but relaxed. It's nice and quiet today. Just hear the stillness. What is it that's most clear in your experience? What stands out most clearly when you look at the present moment? It might be the abdomen rising and falling, pressing against your clothing. Or the weight of the body sitting in the cushion or on the chair. The buttocks pressing down into your cushion. Or maybe something in the face, the lips pressing together. Find when you start meditating, it's better not to try to lock the mind down, choose an object and just keep hammering away at it. It's a good way for the hindrances to come up, to get sleepy or to get restless. But let the mind move around in the present moment. Explore the present moment. Sound of the cars off in the distance, the birds. maybe just the clothes on the skin. The key thing is to give the mind a surface area, somewhere that it can relax and get away from its normal preoccupations, worries, planning. Take a break from the future and the past. Once the mind's settled down a little bit, the breathing's calmed down a bit, and you can pick one of these. Good place to start is the weight of the body in the chair. It's a good grounding place that's very obvious. So place the mind with the weight of the body, the buttocks pressing into the cushion. Just see if you can hold the mind there without it getting distracted. You feel that there's a bit of an effort, a bit of tension that's created. And you try to keep the mind on one thing. It's not a bad thing, but it does take a bit of effort. After a while, you can release it. Just release that tension. Open the mind back up and let it relax. Listen to the birds. sounds outside. The face. The abdomen rising and falling against the clothing. See if you can hold it here, with the sensation of breathing. You find that the mind slips away and you start thinking about yesterday or next week, something that happened 20 years ago. You can count the breaths and give the mind something to do to stop it interfering and injecting itself into the meditation. So on the inhalation, you can count 1. On the exhalation, count 1. Inhalation, count 2. Exhalation, count 2. And like that, up to 10. And when you get to 10, go back to 1. Keeping the mind on the breath and just counting. You lose your place and you can't remember where you got up to, then just start back at 1. Just check yourself that you're not just counting and drifting off, but that the mind is still with the breathing, still with the feeling of the breath. You're connecting with the present moment. You're finding the mind won't settle down and you keep getting distracted, then you can reduce the number. You can count up to 6 or 5. Just make it a bit easier for the mind. Give yourself, take the pressure off. You make it to 10, say 2 or 3 times, and you're feeling pretty steady. And when you get to 10, just try to let go of the counting and just sit, not focusing on anything in particular, just trying to sit in the moment. See how long you can just balance on that point before the mind takes you away. Just open. You manage to stay open and just open aware. You might notice the breath somewhere else, maybe the nostrils, somewhere more subtle. And take that as your object. See how long you can stay there without the counting. You get lost and you're not quite sure where you are, then just go back to the breath and start counting again. as we come to the end of the meditation, it's nice to take that peace that we've found and just wish ourselves well. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May everything go okay for me. And all of us, may we all be happy. May we all be peaceful. Everybody did very well. It's very still in here and peaceful. So we've been sitting for 45 minutes. And time to stretch our legs, not have a break from the meditation, but to keep meditating. Guess people find a place outside, John?
Yep.
In the grass or on the tiles. Just find a place where you can take 20 steps, 20 paces, and turn around and come back. And so the idea with walking meditation is to put your attention into your feet, the sensation of your feet touching the ground. And you can say left, right, as you walk along. Just take roughly 20 paces, whatever space you have. Try not to get distracted by other people. And at the end, when you stop, just check, am I still with my feet, or have I drifted away and started thinking about something else? Bring the attention back into the feet and then turn around and walk back 20 paces. Left, right, and just walk up and down, stretch our legs, and will there be some kind of bell?
Yes, I'll chime these.
Okay.
It's time to come back in.
Yep. Okay.
What time? How long should we walk for?
Half an hour.
Half an hour.
Mhm.
Till about 11:15.
Yep.
Yep.
You may have noticed that it's a lot easier to get distracted when you're walking than when you're sitting, because you have your eyes open, there's people moving around, you have to look where you're stepping. And that's all. The walking meditation is it's emphasizing a different skill in meditation. Whereas when you're sitting, you can get much more concentrated. You can really kind of focus in on the breath. When you're walking, there are these distractions. Like I said, your eyes are open, things are happening around you. And so the mind is pulled away, especially the beautiful views here. and the mind is pulled away, and then you have to come back to yourself and realize, oh, I'm supposed to be doing walking meditation, and come back to the feet. And this skill of realizing that you're not doing the meditation is called sampajanya. Sampajanya. So there's two qualities that we're developing when we're meditating. One is called sati, and one is called sampajanya. So sati is the ability to remember. So it's remembering. I'm with the breath, I'm with the breath, I'm with the feet. That remembering is called sati. When you lose your sati and the mind wanders away, then when you come to yourself and you realize, oh, I'm thinking about work, I'm thinking about the kids, or I'm thinking about next week, that moment of realization of what you're actually doing, that's called sampajanya. So these two qualities have to work together. So once the sampajanya has caught the mind, then the sati pulls it back to the object. So Ajahn Chah talked about these two qualities. It doesn't really matter too much what object meditation you're doing. It's these two qualities of mind. And you can see how they're useful in everyday life when you're working, when you're doing anything, really, reading. This quality of remembering what you're supposed to be doing and being aware of what you are doing. These two things work together, the sati sampajanya. So they're the qualities that we're developing. And walking meditation emphasizes sampajanya because the mind does wander more. It wanders off, and then you have to catch it. And you have a trigger. Each time you put your foot down, there's a new trigger. So kind of bringing you back. Whereas when you're sitting, sometimes you can just drift off into a bit of a numb, vague state and not even realize the sati doesn't have a chance anymore. And there's nothing to trigger the sampajanya. You can just kind of slip off, start nodding, fall asleep, or just get totally lost in a memory. And there's nothing to trigger you to come back. So the sampajanya, the feet are like a sati trigger, and to trigger your sampajanya and make you realize, oh, I've wandered off. I'm looking at the view. I've lost it. I'm thinking about 20 years ago when my ex-wife said this, and then you've totally lost it and you're not doing the meditation at all. So yes, sati sampajanya. Okay, so we've kind of finished up a little bit early. Is there, I guess I could
Questions?
take questions. Yes, I could take questions. That's a good idea. I was going to preface the talk. So when we come back, we'll have lunch from 11 to 12. John will offer me the food first, and I believe that you're going to do some journaling. You can write down, we'll have a look through your new diaries, write down your meditation experience or anything that's come up for you recently in the diary. And John's going to offer me the food, and then everyone can eat. And at 12, we'll come back and I'll give a small talk, maybe half an hour. I'm curious, there's faces that I do recognize from Thursday night, but there's faces I don't recognize. How many people were not here on Thursday night? Oh, it's a good half. It's a good half. Okay, that's good. So I'm going to cover some of the same ground on Thursday that I talked on Thursday night, try to get through it a little bit quicker.
I watched the online version.
Oh, you watched the online version. Okay, cheated. And but I feel that, well, I won't say too much about the talk, but I'll try to push it further and get on to, what is the purpose? The topic of the talk is Maranasati. Maranasati is a reflection on death. So I think it's an appropriate topic at Easter. But it's an appropriate topic for Buddhists all the time. The Buddha said that we should reflect on death every day, and because it brings us fully into life, makes us value the life that we're alive, that we have the opportunity that we do. And what do we do with that opportunity? What is the purpose? Ajahn Chah said that you should ask yourself every day, what am I going to take with me when I die? If you should ask yourself that every day, and you'll become a wise person. So that will be the theme of the talk after the lunch. Okay.
Yep. People want to stay here, just sit quietly, do some writing if you wish, and I'll offer the food to the Ajahn, and then you'll come in and give a short blessing chant, and then have you have a meal, and then invite everyone else to get some food as well. Give a short blessing in appreciation of your food generosity this morning.
So the blessing is in the ancient language, the Pali language of Theravada Buddhism. And it's just wishing you good health, long life, happiness, good fortune, freedom from accidents and diseases. So well-wishing that we can give to anybody. We can always wish somebody good health, even if they frustrate us at work or difficult people. We can always say, well, at least may they be healthy. So we can share metta. It's called metta. So it's a blessing of metta for you, for your generosity, bringing food today. Sabba roga vinimuto sabba santa pavajito sabba veramati kanto nibuto chatuamba vasapitiyo vivachantu sabba roko vinasatu mate pavatwantarayo Sukhidikayuko pawa apiwadana silitsa nichang Utapachayino chataro dhamma vadanti ayuwano sukhang palang.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So please enjoy the meal together, and we'll come back at 12. I think that roughly half the people here weren't here on Thursday night. So the people who were here on Thursday night, I'm going to cover some of the same ground, but I'll try to get to a bit further this time. So the most common question that I'm asked when I ask for questions is, why did you become a monk? It's the thing that everybody wants to know. How did that happen? Why would you give up the world? Why would you give up a lot of pleasures in the world, relationships, and the freedom of money, having wealth? And so my Dharma journey started when I was about 35. I'd never heard the word Dhamma before. I didn't know anything about Buddhism. I'd never read a book about Buddhism. I'd done a little bit of yoga and a little bit of meditation, maybe 5-10 minutes at the end of a yoga class. But I didn't really know. I had no spirituality at all. I'd rejected the Christianity of my parents when I was a teenager. And but I had a friend. I was 35. He was about 32, 33. We were kids together, lived across the street, we were friends. And he was driving to work one day and he just couldn't feel how hard he was pressing the pedal. His foot was kind of numb. And by the end of the day, his whole right leg was numb. So he went to the doctor and they did some tests and he had an inoperable brain tumor behind his right ear. It was the size of a plum. and it was inside the brain, so they can't cut. I think if it's on the surface of the brain, they can maybe cut it off, but they can't cut into the brain and take it out. And he had 2 life insurance policies, which both paid out while he was still alive. The chemotherapy had a 2% success rate for that it was quite a rare type of cancer. And he had the best doctors, the best private hospitals, latest drugs, everything. And he was dead in 9 months. And he had a wife, a 2-year-old, a 4-bedroom brick house, a good job, shares, everything, and everything going in life. And just like that, he was gone in under a year. And that was a big wake-up call for me, because I was working in Brisbane and working very hard, making good money, but finding no meaning in life, not just working hard and trying to enjoy having money, chasing sensual pleasures, basically, and going on holidays and restaurants and all of the things, normal things that people do. But this really rocked me. Like, what is the purpose of everything if you can just be driving to work one day and you can't feel the pedal under your foot, and then within a year you're dead, you're gone. It just really left me not with many answers. And so, like I said, I had no spirituality. I had nothing to fall back on. No one, my mother, even now, I've been a Buddhist monk for 13 years, and my mother's like, oh, don't talk about death. So it's just a taboo subject in my house. As I was growing up, I never had a conversation about death with my parents. And but I had a bucket list. Someone had encouraged me to write a bucket list, and I had that on the back of my door. And number 1 thing was to sail around the world. And so I quit my job and I started doing sailing lessons. And I thought that would somehow fix it. If I just go to sea and do the things that I want to do in life, then that's the answer. And I think that's quite a common answer in the modern world. Just seize life and do what you want to do while you've still got time to do it. So, but a friend of mine had been talking about this Vipassana. He'd been talking about Vipassana for years. Vipassana, Goenka. And I never could take 10 days off work to go and do it. I could never justify, I wanted to go to the Great Barrier Reef or Bali or Thailand or do something exciting. I didn't want to sit in a room with other people and be silent for 10 days. But now I had a lot of time. I was waiting for a sailing course to come up. And so I signed up for this Vipassana course. And how many people here have done the Goenka Vipassana? Yeah, a number of people. So you get mixed reports. Some people think it's torture and hate it, and some people changes their life. And I was one of those people that changed my life. It really, suddenly I had a direction, enlightenment, something to strive towards, a direction to go in, and wholesome things. I used to play guitar, but I always sang songs about breaking up and relationships and bitterness. But no, I didn't want to sing those songs anymore. The chanting, Goenka's chanting, has just changed my mind to a wholesome direction. And but I did do the sailing. I sailed. I did deliveries from Brisbane, Samoa to Brisbane, to Darwin, Bali, Malaysia, and ended up in Thailand. And I thought I'll go and do another Goenka. And the second one, on day 3, the pain started up again. I thought, I know how bad this pain's going to get. And I just wanted something different. I thought, I can't do this. I can't do 10 hours of meditation a day for 10 days. I just couldn't physically do it. And then someone told me about the forest tradition. And we have sitting and walking meditation. And I thought, oh, that I can do. If I can get up when the pain gets too bad, I can get up and I can walk, and I can do that. And so to cut a long story short, I ended up at Wat Pa Nanachat in Thailand, the international forest monastery that was started by Ajahn Chah. How many people don't know about Ajahn Chah? I've never heard of Ajahn Chah. Okay. So Ajahn Chah was one of the great meditation masters of Thailand in the last 50, 100 years. And he had many Western disciples. That was what was unique about him. he attracted Westerners to him. Even though he couldn't speak English, somehow he managed to teach Westerners a very simple and direct way of teaching. And he built up quite a following of Western disciples in Thailand. And then the Vietnam War happened and they moved to England. There was a monk called Lompo Samedo, or Ajahn Samedo at that time, an American monk. And I was very lucky when I went to Wat Pah Nanachat. Lompo Samedo was actually there. Ajahn Samedo was, he'd retired from the monastery in England and he'd moved back to Thailand. And it was like the same feeling I had with Gwenka when he first explained the Dhamma to me. When Lompo Samedo taught the Dhamma, then it was like something I'd never heard before. And the way he explained the path to enlightenment, the stages of enlightenment, it was just a revelation to me. So I got totally hooked. And on the forest practice, I didn't really intend to stay in Thailand that long. I think on Thursday night, I told I was waiting for a boat to take me to India and Sri Lanka and India, and the boat got hit by lightning, and I got stranded in Thailand for about 5 months, and that was just long enough to end up at Wat Pah Nanachat and get hooked on the Dhamma all over again. And but nonetheless, it was a big decision. I was a novice. Usually, you're an anagarika, what's called an anagarika, for 6 months, so in white robes for 6 months, and then you're a novice monk for 1 year. And at the end of the first year, I became a novice monk. And at the end of the first year, they said, well, you're welcome to ordain. You'll fit into the community. Just learn the chanting, sew the robes. We have to hand sew our robes. It took me 3 months to hand sew my robes, sewing every day. And but I wasn't ready. I couldn't quite commit. I missed home. I wanted to go back to my family in particular. It was hard. I'd already been traveling for 2 years, 3 years at that point. And when you ordain in our tradition, it's for 5 years. You make a 5-year commitment. Don't come what may. You don't back off. You don't let yourself kind of talk yourself out of it and go home. If you take that higher ordination, the final ordination, then it's a 5-year commitment. So the idea of being away for another 5 years, and don't even think about asking to go home. So it was a big decision. It took me 2 years in the end to decide. And there was this reflection of Lompocha. I read all of the talks that have been translated into English for Lompocha. There's a big, thick brown book, which if you're lucky enough, you can find it. It's probably free online as well. And I read all of the talks and listened to a lot of Lompo Samedo's talks. But it was this one thing about Ajahn Chah saying, no, there were many things, but one of the powerful things was Ajahn Chah saying, you should ask yourself every day, what am I going to take with me when I die? And you'll become a wise person if you ask yourself that. And so I did this when I was a novice, and I was really umming and ahhing, trying to decide, should I do it? Should I go home? I'd ask myself this question, well, what am I going to take with me when I die? If I go back home and get a job, get a mortgage, save up for retirement, and just one day you can be driving to work and you'll be told by the doctor you've got 9 months to live. And what am I going to take with me? I'm not going to take your bank balance. You're not going to take your house. You're not going to take your car. You're not even going to take your family or your relative, your partner. They'll stay behind. And so I was whittling away. What is it that you take with you? And one of the things for me is, one of the lucky things in my life is I've always really been able to concentrate. At school, I did very well at school. And because I could concentrate, I never seemed to lose my concentration on what the teacher was saying. Other children, kind of struggled with that, or the playing up in class. And I was always really attending to what the teacher was teaching and could concentrate for long hours studying, and did very well, at school, and went to university. And And that was a real gift for me. And you know, talking to my mother, I never had children. I was married once, but I never had children. And my sister was such a different character to me from when we were little. You know, if mum said you should eat cereal for breakfast, my sister would rebel and she'd eat toast. You know, and I'd be a good boy and I'd eat the cereal. And it was just everything was like that through our lives. And if you talk to parents, if you are parents, then I'm sure that you see the character in the child from the very young age, you know, and that character kind of unfolds as they get older. But there's certain characteristics which are there from birth. And my, you know, real gift was concentration. And so the teaching on samadhi, if everyone's heard of samadhi, who hasn't heard of samadhi? Samadhi. So samadhi is translated as concentration often, but it's the kind of concentration rather than kind of concentrating on a maths test, you know, kind of furrowing your brow and kind of really concentrating hard to try to figure something out. It's like the concentrating of making toffee. So if you put sugar and water together and you boil them and you simmer them and the water evaporates off and it becomes more and more concentrated. And that's what we're doing in meditation. We're letting go of the future, letting go of the past, which we spend so much of our time thinking about the future and the past, planning and mincing over things from the past. And we're concentrating the mind in the present moment. So we're setting up a perimeter. And by just being with what is really present, then the mind gets less scattered. It becomes more concentrated. So it's not this kind of tense effort to concentrate the mind. And this is what I was trying to do in the guided meditation, was just put a perimeter around and to say, whatever's happening in the present moment, that's good enough to start with. Concentrate the mind in that way, letting go of thoughts about work and what's happening outside and what Donald Trump's doing and all of those things, just letting all of that go and concentrating it in the present moment and then focusing in. And the smaller the surface, the greater the concentration. So, and when you, as the mind gets more and more concentrated, you have to be more delicate. Like you can't, as the toffee becomes more and more toffee, you can't have too high a heat or it's going to burn. You know, you've really got to simmer it even more slowly, get more subtle until you can concentrate it right down onto a small surface area. And that's samadhi. That's called samadhi. And this is one of the it's a factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. It's the kind of the highest teaching of the Buddha in a way, is to concentrate the mind. And I won't talk about jhanas, but you know, the sama samadhi, correct concentration. It's this process of making the mind more and more refined and more concentrated. So, and how concentrated my mind is when I die, am I going to leave that here? Does anybody else move in when I go out and inherit my concentration? No, nobody will inherit that. Nobody else can buy that. I don't leave it here. It's a quality of mind, and that was my conclusion. That was one of the things that I'm going to take with me when I go, and all of the paramitas. If you've heard the paramitas, we switched that one out. The paramitas, the 10 paramitas, all these qualities: kindness, generosity, determination, and patience is another good one. It's a subtle. It's not something that's promoted in our culture anymore, really, very much. But patience is something. It's in the face of somebody doing something irritating. Can you be kind? Can you be stable and rooted? I found walking meditation very useful for that. Being in the feet. When someone irritates me and I can feel my heart starts pumping, you know, I always go into the feet because I've done a lot of walking meditation and I can just be with the feet and not with them and and my dosa, my anger towards them. I do get angry, and some people irritate me, but this mindfulness practice is an amazing refuge for that. And that's a paramita, that's a spiritual quality. And that's something you're not going to leave behind. Nobody's going to inherit your patience. They may be inspired by your patience and remember you. But I believe that when you die, and if there's another life, I think every tradition, even if you end up as an angel in heaven or wherever you end up, these spiritual qualities are what you're going to take with you when you die. You don't have to leave them behind. We talked about this Maranasati, awareness of death. It's one of the contemplations that the Buddha promoted. It's a meditation technique in itself. But, we're kind of not built to contemplate death. I talked about two magnets with the north ends pushing towards each other. If you actually sit and meditate and you try to contemplate death, it's quite difficult to do. And one of the things I found very powerful for Maranasati, for contemplation of death, is chanting. In the monastery, every morning, 3 a.m. the bell goes, and 3:30 in the morning, you're on your knees, chanting the Pali language in the morning chanting. And then we do these reflections, the reflection on death, the reflection on the nature of the body, reflection on kindness, compassion. There's a whole set of reflections that we do. And I'd like to do some of the chanting with you before we start meditating again. It's something that John doesn't do a lot of Pali chanting in these Sundays. So who has done Pali chanting before? Okay, so not a lot of people. So what I'm going to do is we'll just take one chant, which we do almost every day at Ninachat, in Wapananachat, the International Forest Monastery. And it's about old age, sickness, and death. And the translation, but this is exactly, that's what I'm talking about. It's that in our culture, it is like the two north ends of a magnet. It's like when I talk to my mother about death, which is a Buddhist monk, that's my job. And she's like, oh, no, don't talk about death as if it's going to happen because you talk about it. But if you don't talk about it, how are you going to be ready for it when it comes, if you don't contemplate it as you go through? But when you're on your knees, I'm not going to force you all to be on your knees, but in the monastery, when you're training as a monk, it's every morning on your knees, and it's quite painful, half an hour chanting and doing these reflections. I'm subject to old age. I'm not beyond old age. I'm subject to sickness. I'm not beyond sickness. I'm subject to death. I'm not beyond death. Everything that is dear to me, I'll be separated from. So the translation in this book is slightly different. Those words that I just shared with you, they're the ones that we chant nowadays. This is Kanti Palo's book from Sydney. He's got his own translations in there, but it's more or less the same. He uses slightly different words, but it's the same thing. So for the chanting, what I'm going to do is I'll read out one line of Pali, and then because John knows the chants as well, because he was a monk for 9 years, or 11 years. So I'll read out one line so you can hear the pronunciation of Pali, and then John will lead you all in repeating that line. And we'll do it line by line. We'll go through it, and then we'll try to do it all in one go, or just the Pali. So I believe the Pali is in a bold font, and then the English translation's in a lighter font. You can tell what's not English.
Similar to Sanskrit.
Sanskrit it's a kind of spoken, more colloquial version of Sanskrit. So it's very close to Sanskrit, but Sanskrit was a kind of for the Brahmins and for the upper castes to use. And the Buddha wanted to teach in what the common man spoke. And so it's related to Sanskrit, but it's a kind of simplified Sanskrit. Okay.
So do we do the English
We'll finish with the English. We might just read the English together
Yeah.
at the end.
Yeah.
So we'll go line by line for the Pali,
Starting with the Jara.
starting with the Jara Dhamomi, and I'll chant it one line, and then John will lead everyone in repeating that line. We'll go line by line, and then when we've done that, we'll try to go through it all together in one go, just the Pali. Okay, so it's Jara Dhamomi,
Jara Dhamomi,
Jaranganatito,
Tito,
Bayadi Dhamomi,
Biadamomi,
Bayadinganatito,
Dinganatito,
Maranadamomi,
Maranadamomi,
Marananganatito,
Maranatito,
Sabehi me piehi,
Sabe Yehi,
Mana peyi, Mana pehi,
Mana Pehi,
Nana bawo,
Nana Baro,
Wina bawo.
Vina Baro,
Might try it in one go. Sabehi me piehi, Mana pehi, Nana bawo, Wina bawo.
Sabe Ime, Ie, Imana, Pe, Inana, Baro, Vina Baro,
Kama sakomi,
Sakumi,
Kama dayado,
Namadayadu,
Kama yoni,
Kamayoni,
Kama bandhu,
Kamayadu,
Kama patisarano,
Kamatisarano,
Yang kamang karisami,
Yang Kamang Karisami,
Kalayanang wa papakang wa,
Alayam Papakanwa,
Tasa dayado bawisami,
Tadayadroga Visami,
Ewang amehi abinham pachawe kitabang.
Ewanga Behi Abinfang Pacha Vekitabang.
It's quite a challenge to get it the first time. But when you're in a group, when you've got 50 or 60 people chanting together and you do it every morning, it doesn't take that long before you pick it up. I really promoted on Thursday night, if you can go to a monastery, either in Thailand or in Australia, Wat Buddha Dhamma in Sydney is a very good monastery with Ajahn Bhuripanyo down there. He does the chanting every morning, every evening. And
There's Gillian online with her chanting book.
very good. Oh, wow. Okay, so I'll go slowly, but let's try to chant together all the way from the beginning to the end.
Starting with the Jara.
Starting with the Jara Dhamomi. Jara Dhamomi, Jara Nanatito, Vayadi Dhamomi, Vayadinganatito, Maranadamomi, Maranatito, Sabe me piehi, Mana pehi, Nana bhavo, Vina bhavo, Kama sakomi, Kama dayado, Kama yoni, Kama bandhu, Kama patisarano, Yang kamang karisami, Kalayanang wa papakang wa, Tasadayado bhavisami, Ewa me mehi abinham pachawe kitabang.
The V is pronounced like a W.
The V is pronounced like a W. I could have done a little pronunciation class at the beginning, and the M with a dot over it is like the NG in ING. NG. Yes. So I think you did very well. Yeah. The first time, I think it was not too bad. So on the first line, I noticed there's a typo in the English. It says, I am of the nature to decay. So I'm sure that we can all read the English together. So we'll do it together in English. I am of the nature to decay. I have not gone beyond decay. I am of the nature to be diseased. I have not gone beyond disease. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death. All that is mine, dear and delightful, will change and vanish. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, alive supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, whether good or evil, of that I shall be the heir. Thus by us would these be frequently recollected. Must say, I prefer the Amravati translation to Rakanti Palos. It's a pretty grim thing to do at 3:30 every morning. But it's really, people say, why did you give up the world? And it was this kind of practice of really like hitting a brick wall. And when my friend died, it was a big shock, but I couldn't process it. It couldn't internalize it. It made me doubt what I was doing, but it didn't. I think when I got to the monastery and started doing chants like this, it just really, it made me sit up and pay attention. What's going on here? And not only this, but we go conduct funerals as monks, open air pyre. We actually burn the coffin with the corpse inside on an open pyre at Wat Pah Nanachat. We attend people's autopsies and see the corpses cut open. And so some very powerful Maranasati practices where we come face to face with death, and you just can't deny it when it's kind of your job to do people's funerals. You can't avoid it, and it keeps coming up. And so I did get to this point on Thursday night, and I think I got to everyone to this point where it's like, wow, yes, okay, I'm feeling very alive and awakened to death. But so what? So where do you go with that? And that's what I wanted the theme of this talk to be about, was Ajahn Chah's reflection about what are you going to take with you? And those were the answers that I came up with, was samadhi in particular, and these spiritual qualities that the Buddha taught, the 10 paramitas. These are the things that you'll take with you when you die. And so, but Ajahn Chah said, ask yourself this question every day and you'll become a wise person. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. So I think when we talked before, we were going to do some meditation now.
Meditation, and then maybe a bit of walking, and then ending up with another meditation.
Yep. So maybe we'll do a 30-minute sit. And if you have questions, then save them to the end. There'll be a chance to ask, but we might just stand up, loosen our legs, and sit down and do a 30-minute sit. So with the air conditioning going, I won't give too much direction or instruction. Just try to find the breath where you left off. start with the counting again. Just ease yourself back into the where we were at this morning. And if you find that difficult, or if you struggle with that, then you can go back through the stages, either listening to the sounds outside, listening to the sound of the air conditioning, the weight of the body in the chair. Just start out, challenge yourself to pick up where you left off. Just try to sink into the breath. Yes. If people want to sit on, they're welcome to sit on or walk. I'm not going to force you to go outside and walk, but you want to stretch your legs, try to keep the mindfulness going in your feet. We'll come back half an hour. But I said we'd have questions and answers. We've got 20 minutes.
What do you think it means to be wise via the process of contemplation of your death and what you can pass on? What does that wisdom actually mean?
Yes, how to use your time wisely. This is what the contemplation of death makes us realize, is that time is so precious, and we don't know how much time we have left. This was one of the big insights I had in that period when I was deciding, that when I was contemplating death, is that one day it's going to be a day just like today. You're going to wake up and you're not going to know that today I'm going to die. If you die suddenly in a car crash or something, or you've got your foot on the pedal and you can't feel it and the doctor tells you you're going to die, it's just going to be a normal day like today. And so every day we should think like this: today's a precious day, it could be my last day. And that's what makes you wise, as you use your time wisely. But if you don't think about death, you think, oh, I've got to save for my retirement, and I've got to, pay off the house, and I've got to get the kids to school, and, and all of these things, and get swept up in that every day for the rest of your life, then one day it's going to be a big shock. And so I think that Ajahn Chah, our teacher, would say, that the day you're told you're going to die, you go, yeah, of course, I'm going to die. It's not a big shock to me. I've been preparing for this every day. That's what makes you wise.
Well, just to also relate to that, the chant, when translated in English, use the term I. I. But that's kind of a controversial. Nobody's, at least in science, we haven't found an I. So I wonder if part of the wisdom is that the I doesn't exist, or the I is a limited concept of who we are.
Right. Yes. I mean, the contemplation of not self, which was on the first board, this body, we take it to be so much what and who we are. But if you think about the body you had as a 10-year-old child, that body's totally gone. It's completely gone in every way. And scientifically, they say every cell is gone 7 years. And so you weren't, but I am still here. And that body is completely gone. And so one day this body will be gone. Actually, tomorrow this body will be different from what it is today. The surface of the skin is constantly shedding. So you think you're looking at yourself in the mirror every day, thinking it's me, but it's a different body in the mirror every day. And so you're right. The wisdom of being able to let go of the body when the time comes and realize that it's not what I am anyway. So shedding this sense of I, and the body is the biggest piece. Well, that's a even bigger task. The body is the place to start. All the Kruba-Ajahns in our tradition say that the body is the thing you should contemplate. We have another chant, which I wish, in a way, I don't know how effective doing the chanting was for everyone, because it's more of a residential retreat thing where you're at the monastery for a week or 2 weeks or a month, and you do it every day, and it takes time for it to sink in and have little different insights. And there's something about that early morning before dawn that the mind is very kind of clear and it's receptive somehow. It goes in. But yeah, you're right. I mean, ultimately, even letting go of the sense of even your memories being I, which is a much more difficult thing, because they seem to come up, they seem to be me, they seem to be mine. That's a much more difficult thing to let go of than the body. It's quite easy to see that. I mean, if I had my hand amputated, I would still be me. I'm not my hand. This is quite coarse. Contemplating the body is the easy place to start. The mind, my thoughts, my opinions, my views, my memories, these seem much more personal, and really to constitute who we are is my story. So letting go of that, it's a higher level practice. But we have one chant, the 32 parts of the body. It's part of the Buddha's Satipatthana course, Satipatthana Sutta, where he goes through and the liver, the spleen, the heart, all of these things. And this is not what I am. And to contemplate, to break the body apart like that in your mind, visually, this is what the autopsies really help with. But really, yeah, the easiest place to start with contemplation of not self is the body.
Can you talked about taking the 10 parameters with you, taking those qualities with you. Can you talk about that in terms of the Buddhist concept of reincarnation?
Okay, yes. Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean when I say taking them with you. Reincarnation is kind of not quite the right word. Because reincarnation is more of a Hindu concept. In Buddhism, rebirth is a more correct way of saying it. So it's not that there is a thing, a self, which goes from this life to another. The simile that's usually used to explain it is a candle, which burns all the way to the end, and then you light another candle from that, the first one, and then the first one goes out. Now the flame on the second candle, is it the same flame as came from the first candle, or is it a different flame? I mean, it's because of the first one that the second one exists. Without the first one, the second one wouldn't exist. But you can't say it's the same flame. Every moment, it's a new flame. And so you could say that the paramitas are the wholesome things which are rising constantly to support us, living a good life, being successful in life, and all the things that matter. But they're arising constantly from the past, the causes that we put in past lives, coming back up in the current life, making a wholesome character. But also, likewise, if you do bad deeds, then those things are going to catch up with you as well. So it's both a different flame and the same flame. But there's no actual thing. There's no self which is going from one life to another. Reincarnation, the Hindus would believe that there is a self, the soul, which would go from one life to another. And the Buddha said that there is. He didn't say categorically. He was asked categorically, "Is there a soul?" And he refused to answer the question. But he said, "It's not self." So the things we take to be a self, my body, my possessions, my life, my memories, these things are not, because they're all impermanent. They all come and they go. They arise and they pass. But there's a continuation. There's a continuum of causation. So the intentional actions, the karma that we create in each life, rolls on and it's like seeds being planted which sprout again. It's kind of a complex thing to get your head around. Oh yes, go. Yep.
Follow-on question.
Yep.
Please continue.
No, it relates to where I lost my thread in the other talk. No, maybe your question is.
So it seems like everything kind of rests, especially in monastic life, on like faith in karma and rebirth.
Right.
And so I wondered, when you ordained, how much of that did you sort of have already? And was it based on trusting teachers that you'd met, or something that was already within you, something you grew up?
Right. Because I sat those two Goenka courses, those two Vipassana courses, and then I ordained very quickly. So I had faith somewhere along the way, but if you'd have asked me was I a Buddhist when I first ordained, I would have been quite queasy about, because Goenkaji's not very, he's not very kind of good with Buddhism. It's the Dharma, but it's not Buddhism. And so I struggled with that. Am I a Buddhist? And also with rebirth. If you'd have asked me, do you believe in rebirth? I would have kind of choked on the answer. I would have found it very difficult to say yes, even when I first ordained. But my teacher in Thailand, after I ordained, I was assigned to Ajahn Kavali, who's the new abbot of Wat Pah Nanachat. He said he's a German, and he said something which really resonated with me. He said, none of us really know what's going to happen when we die. It's a great mystery, but we know it can be like this. We can see the animals, they get born, and we can see humans, we get born. So everything else is speculation. There may well be heavens and hells and angels and demons and all of those things, but we don't know. But we know it can be like this. So the most logical thing is that it's going to be like this after we die. And that really struck a chord with me. It's like there's a thing called Occam's razor. You might have heard of Occam's razor. It's a principle in science that when you have two explanations and both are equally the evidence supports both equally, you should choose the simplest explanation. The simplest one is the most likely one to be true. The more complicated an idea is, the less likely it is to be true. It's called Occam's razor. And so I was an atheist before. I was a kind of hardcore, I read lots of popular science, and I was a hardcore atheist. And that kind of principle really resonated with me when he said that, what is it going to be? Is it going to be even nothing? It's difficult to imagine, just total annihilation. I used to believe that in my early 20s, that you just died and then that's it. I was a total nihilist and an atheist. But even that is like, how can you imagine this only exists because I'm here perceiving it? So how can everything continue on? This is where I got stuck a bit as an atheist. How can everything continue on when everything is subjective? Really, it is. Our whole experience. How can it just be that it comes to an end? I always drew a blank at that point. So I thought a lot about it, rebirth, and the conclusion I came to is it's kind of the worst case scenario that we die and then we're born again just to grow old, watch our parents die, go through all the sorrows of life, and then get sick and die, and then we're born again, and then we have to go through it again and again and again. Nietzsche talked about this, that he had just a thought experiment. He was not a Buddhist. The eternal return. Imagine if you had to live the same life over and over and over and over again, and you couldn't change anything. And this is the first one. He had this thought experiment, that was his basis for morality or living a good life and being careful with your actions. But I think the Buddhists, in Yanatiloka, he said in The Word of the Buddha, which is Longpo Sumedho's favorite book, he says that you can only really understand the first noble truth in the context of rebirth. So it's an ocean of suffering. We can think, well, it's all right. I can go to the jazz club and I can drink wine and I can have a good life and it's fine. And then, of course, I have to die like everybody else. But, the Buddha said that your tears are greater than the ocean. The tears you've shed for loved ones are greater than the oceans. If you piled up all the bones, it would be higher than any mountain that you've died and left behind. It's the ocean of suffering that we have to go through, life after life after life. That's the only way we can make sense of the Buddhist perspective. Otherwise, it's just eat, drink, and be merry, and don't worry about it. But we're condemned to die over and over again. And so I think I'm pretty close to saying I believe in rebirth now. But you just pick up these things. You know, you listen to enough talks and you just pick up, somebody says something that resonates with where you've come from and makes sense to you. And you think, oh yeah, and it adds up.
Yeah, some would believe that you have a choice. You know, obviously different traditions, but do the Buddhists believe that the rebirth is immediate, or?
Yes, in Theravada it's immediate. You know,
Okay.
from one moment of consciousness, it's like the flame
Yeah,
that gets lit.
continuous.
It's continuous. Yeah, yeah. The Tibetans believe, is it Bardo?
Yeah.
49 days, and it's kind of folk belief in Thailand that there is an intermediate period because they have certain ceremonies of mourning and dedicating merits and things like that, so that the chitta, the consciousness, can have a good rebirth. But actually, that's folk belief. The orthodox Theravada position, at least from the Abhidhamma, is that it happens from the very next moment, which is difficult to imagine that the exact conditions could be there somewhere for you to get reborn. Somebody is having sex at that very moment, and you just happen to be right, Johnny on the spot, and you get reborn. It's difficult to get your head around, and that's why the cultural beliefs tend to drift away from the orthodox Theravada position.
So the whole idea of like living life over and over again, eventually we reach enlightenment and go back to God. Is that true?
A lot of Buddhists would say no, but my mother's a Catholic. I've had some quite good conversations with her
Yeah,
about
recovering Catholic myself.
Right. Yes, she would probably call herself the same. She went through a divorce when I was 8 years old and felt she was never formally excommunicated, but she didn't feel welcome at church after the divorce. It took a long time for her to go back. So I'm not, in those conversations, I don't mind using the terms nibbana, and God interchangeably. I think there are differences, but for a lay, for most intents and purposes, you can talk about it as the same thing. I really do believe it's ineffable. A good Catholic will say that God is ineffable, and you cannot really say anything about it. And a good Buddhist would say the same about Nibbana. So there is a difference, but I think in terms of thinking about that, rebirth and some ultimate goal, union with God and Nibbana is, you're talking in parallel. You're talking about the same concept, but in two different doctrines. Yeah. I think that it's good enough for me. Yeah.
In Christianity, they have the word resurrection,
Right.
which means rebirth.
Right. Even for a Buddhist to die and to go to heaven is a rebirth.
That's right.
So Christians would certainly believe in that. I mean, all Christians want to go to heaven, but you don't have this body. But the Buddhist rebirth is quite different in that, Christians would believe you would recognize your relatives in heaven, whereas a Buddhist generally wouldn't. You would believe that you were related, or you may, even through some higher knowledge, you may know that you were related, but you would have quite a different form in heaven. Whereas a Christian, I think, would think you would expect to walk up and see that person literally in heaven. I don't think Buddhists would think that.
Can I ask you a question about having some practical way of having this awareness of recognizing my own death, and apply that in daily life? Apart from this chanting, is there anything else that you might recommend or you use yourself to embrace that awareness and be able to remember that I'm going to die?
I think, the first thing that occurred to me is going to funerals. I think Ajahn Amaro, the abbot in London, he said that when you go to a funeral, people are very open to talk about death and talk about their mortality, or when somebody's sick in hospital, to actually go and sit, I mean, deathly sick. One of the things Buddhist monks do is chaplaincy, going and seeing people with terminal cancer in hospital. And so these kind of practices will be the most powerful way, going to funerals and talking to people who are actually dying. That's not a very practical, that doesn't really answer your question. But for me, they're the most powerful practices, is actually, because we do go to and do chanting at people's funerals, go to the graveside, go to the bed in the hospital. So I've always found Maranasati, the contemplation of death, quite a difficult thing to do. If I just sit cross-legged and think, right now I'm going to put half an hour into thinking about death, it doesn't go very far. It's quite difficult, actually. There is an Ajahn in Thailand, Ajahn Achalo, who comes from Brisbane, and he has a CD of death contemplations, which I believe you can download off the internet. You can dig them up. I certainly have copies of them. And he goes through different scenarios where you're walking in the forest and a snake comes out and bites you. If you close your eyes and you put the CD on, he leads you through, you know, lying in the hospital bed, all your relatives around, and slowly drawing your last breath. And he's very graphic. The way he describes it is very easy to imagine. And they were probably the best resource that I ever came across. The best intentional death contemplations that I ever did. I did them in the forest when I was a very junior monk, and they were very powerful as well. But it's very hard. It's a very hard thing to bring up in the mind. There's no quick trick.
Maybe as a suggestion, just the use of the breath, knowing that we often speak about death as the end of the breath. And so that because we're always breathing, to be able to be aware of that whatever you're doing, you notice your breath, oh, this could be the last one. What if this is the last one? So breathing in and knowing this is going to be the last out breath. And so the mind letting go of being caught up in pettiness and immaturity and frustrations and jealousies. It's like just ready the mind, this is the last breath, let go. And that could be at the beginning of a meditation, at the end of a meditation, or just walking or driving. We notice our breath, and then that triggers the thought, oh, the last breath. Breathe in, calm, clear, aware, let go. That's it.
Even holding our breath, John, or was that going a little too?
Well, you could hold it for
Imagining holding your breath and imagining that there's no next breath.
Yeah. So even hold it for a few seconds to have thought, last breath, let go of pettiness, futility, and all the things I've been holding on to, because what's the point? Last breath, clear mind, release, freedom.
Following on from that guidance and your talk today around, I suppose, more of a conscious awareness of death and dying, and how that can infuse a conscious awareness of life and living. What guidance or reminders would you have for a Dharma-inspired person like me who sits with people who are dying or in respite, and who may not have lived a life of conscious awareness of death and dying, but are now feeling fear, sadness, pain, distraction, avoidance? What would be useful for me in that space to hold that space for that person, and what might be useful for them to remember in that time, or for them to see or contemplate in that time?
The best advice that I got was, if you ask them what was really valuable in your life, and get them to start reflecting on what was of value in their life, and they may talk about their family, things that they did, and try to guide to wholesome things. So not away from material things to wholesome values. So good deeds that they did, trying to get someone to bring recollection of the good deeds that they did in their life will lift the mind. And that's what they really need to, as they approach death, is to feel content with the life that they've lived, because everybody does good deeds and made sacrifices, and so it's not trying to push it on them, but to ask them what was of value, and then try to guide them into the good deeds they did. Is that Chaganusati? Chaganusati, I think, is a reflection on your virtue, and so to bring up the good deeds that you did. That's an important Buddhist practice as you're approaching death. Good. And that kind of does, we've run a little bit over time. Can I speak for another 5 minutes? That kind of makes, back to where I lost my thread. I realized it was the insight or this simile that occurred to me just before I started speaking. That was what I was heading for. And because it was so fresh in my mind, it just dropped straight out. So I've never talked about this before. It just kind of came up in my mind. Is comparing the 10 paramitas, these spiritual qualities, to material wealth. So what you're really aiming to do is, when you first get a mortgage, it's very tough to make the repayments, and you've got to make sure you don't lose your job, and you keep paying it off, and it's quite tight. And that's a bit like having unwholesome habits like drinking or breaking the 5 precepts, and going against those tendencies that you've had and renouncing those things. And it's tough at the beginning, but with the house, once you get to a certain point, the equity goes up and you get on top of the mortgage repayments, and then suddenly it's like you're kind of doing okay, and you feel safe, you feel content with where you're up at, and you know that this material wealth is going to build up, and when retirement comes, you're going to be okay. And it's kind of like that with the paramitas, where it is difficult to give up our habits and to be more virtuous, to be more patient, to be more generous. Giving up those parts of ourselves is difficult at the beginning, but you build up a certain account or a certain amount of virtue, of paramitas, and then you start cruising, and people know you as a good person, and you feel faith in yourself that I'm a good person, and then death isn't so scary. You know that you've done the hard work, and when the time comes, you've made the down payments, and you've given up your unwholesome habits, and you've cultivated wholesomeness, and then you don't have to fear death. That's what I was going to say, but I totally forgot. Okay.
So we might finish up for today. So thank you, Ajahn, for being able to share some teachings with us. Much appreciated, and certainly hope to see you back here again another time, another occasion.
Yes.
And thank you, everyone, for coming and sharing your time, energy on Easter Sunday, and for your dana presentations and gifts and so forth. So we might end with a little dedication of merit.
Okay, through the goodness of my practice, or
even just as like a little meditation to share the goodness with family, friends, others.
Okay.
Yeah, just 2-3 minutes. In guide.
So close your eyes. Mind the breath. May our parents, wherever they are, may they be happy. Whatever good deeds I've done, may it somehow benefit them. May the peace and calm that I can develop, may it ripple out into my family, my friends, everywhere I go. May I have the patience and the wisdom to deal with whatever comes in life. And help the people around me. May my siblings, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, may they be free of trouble, free of disease, happy. May all the people that I meet, may they all be well. Happy and peaceful. Even the people who have hurt me or don't like me, may I be able to forgive them and they forgive me. May all beings live in harmony, free from animosity, may we all be well, peaceful. May my practice help the world be a more peaceful place.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Right. Again, thanks for coming, and please take your containers and bags and things that you brought along. I'll collect the chanting books, and hope to see you again either on Thursday night, the Thursday night drop-in group, or the next, or as well, the next meditation day on the 25th of May. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yeah.